Today we've got Kristen England, award-winning home brewer, the St. Paul Homebrewers Club, and now co-owner and, should I say co-brewer?
No, co-owner and brewer.
And brewer.
BJ will like that.
All right. At Pour Decisions Brewing Company in Roseville, Minnesota. So thank you, Chris, for showing up today.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. We've had ties with Northern Brewer forever. I mean, I worked for Northern Brewer 7 years, 8 years.
Yeah.
Just on weekends, started volunteering then. Yeah, so it's good to be able to work back with you guys again.
And you actually are one of the two people that came up with the Patters beer kit that we sell.
I did.
Yeah.
Me and Stan Hieronymus. Basically, the kit is kind of loosely based on a beer called West Malt Extra. You can't get it, you can't buy it. You've never seen it. And I mean, the vast majority of people in the world haven't. If you go to the brewery, if you go to the monastery, they don't serve it. So you have to know somebody that had taken it from somebody or had given it as a gift. Especially just in like the West Malt bottles, it's just a question, and it's just called West Malt Extra. It's basically just a Pilsner made with exactly the same ingredients as they use their triple, just basically no sugar and pretty much the same amount of hops at the same time. So with the lower gravity, it'll be much more hoppy. And with that good Pilsner malt, they use a combination, I think, of 3 different Pilsner malts. I think it's two French and a Belgian, I think. So you get most of all that malt character from just the Pils malt, and then all the hop character from more or less 2 or 3 different types of hops, so usually finishing with their standard kind of Steer and Goldings.
Cool.
Yeah, it's one of the easiest beers in the history of time to make, and for us to have made into an extract kit, because I used to do a lot of the kits, and the problem is that the vast majority of people that buy kits buy extract kits, and a lot of the times when I would make a kit recipe, it wouldn't look a lot like the all grain recipe. But what you always try to do is you try to make the same flavors. You got to get there by different means a lot using extract kit, just because you don't have access to the plethora of ingredients you have for all grain brewing for homebrewers. So we put a little sugar into the. I think you still put a little sugar into the extract kit specifically to make sure it dries out. I mean, anything 10% sugar and under in any beer, you're really not going to see. And a lot of the homebrewers have a problem. Extract brewers have a problem drying their beer out, making it nice and crisp and clean on the end. So we added the sugar to the extract kit. And the all grain kit, the mash is different, which makes sure that it gets nice and dry and everything. And the 3787 is probably the easiest yeast to use ever. I mean, you can ferment it at 62, you can ferment it at 85. I mean, different breweries go all across the spectrum about how hot you can ferment it, how cold you can ferment it, and the beer changes completely. I mean, it's one of the most widely used beer or yeast in Belgium. West Malt uses it and gives it out to everybody. They give it out to Ockel, they give it out to West Vleteren, they give it out to so many different places. And the difference is I think West Malt ferments in conical fermenters at like 62, 63, and then West Vleteren ferments at about 80, 82 in these big like stone basin looking things. So, I mean, you can do a lot of things just with a single yeast.
Cool. Yeah. Now, obviously, you know a lot about home brewing, you know a lot about brewing. How long have you been a home brewer?
2003.
2003.
2003. So 8 years now, is that right?
Okay.
I'm not a mathematician. Yeah.
So you must have started winning awards and doing fairly well pretty early on.
First event I entered. Yeah. I mean, the first thing you have to realize when you start making beer is that, number 1, you don't know anything. Number 2, don't trust anything you read. And number 3, unless you verify it first. Number 3, never trust the interweb, no matter what, as you know. And number 4, trust your own palate. In my original notes, the first, I've told this story numerous times, but the first few recipes, there's these just angry notes scribbled into it. It's like, what the hell is that taste? What's that butter from? This has got this bleach water thing. Then I was going through and I just read this just random thing that said, if you don't filter your water, especially city water, the chlorine in the water will give you this chlorine. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what it was. Next time through, never had that problem again, And that's another key. For any brewer or anything, or chef, just make sure you take notes. Thorough notes, not your abridged versions. After you had too much to drink that day and you jot a few things down. Like as you go, take the time to do it, because if you have to troubleshoot anything, or if you specifically like something, especially when a recipe changes, I mean, once you get switching over to the pro side, once you start making a recipe over and over and over and over again, a new lot of malt will come in, you'll have to do your calculations, see exactly how much extract you get out of it. New hops come in, it's going to be a little different. But all in all, you're making the same thing over and over, so you have a process down. When in the home brewing world, a lot of people don't make the same thing over and over. They want to keep making new things. And if you finally hit one that you like, and you're like, oh, this is awesome. Like you'll taste the bottle, like, oh, it's not very good. Then like a month later, you'll find a case, you'll taste it, this is awesome. And you go back and look, what did I do to this? And you go back and you look at your notes, and you're like, oh, it has the date, and it has the recipe with a few things scratched off, and like scribbles on the thing. Could not get this, you know.
That's me.
Yeah. and if you do want to make it again, or if one of your friends like, I really like that, can you make this, can you make that for me? You know, it gets to be a big time problem. Well, you get to a point same as cooking, you cook with enough ingredients, you know exactly how something will taste. You may understand that you may not like this with something else, but it's good on its own. So as you start doing different recipes, seek out trying to use not every ingredient just because. You see a lot of people like, okay, I've never used this, and this, so it all goes in at once. And then you're like, oh, that was meh. But each individual one of those ingredients may be wonderful, but you never get that out of it. So as you go, I mean, I've made thousands of batches on various sizes. You never have to do, if you're trying different ingredients, I mean, you can always go through, use a more professional method. You want to try a new malt, you know, have a nice, I have a couple 2-liter, the French press coffee presses, and steeping some grain in there, doing a little mini mash, making a little mini beer. I mean, that'll take 20 minutes of your day. I mean, then you can try all different combinations. And as you're experimenting with different beers, you can experiment in the fermenters as well. So as you make, say, 5 gallons of something, you can put them into 1-gallon fermenters or even 2-liter fermenters. It doesn't matter, and add a little bit different something to it, just to see what you like across the way. If you have a beer you like and want to change just the smallest thing about it, that's the best way to do the most things. Then you bottle them up. You bottle them up and you taste them blind with people that know about beer, they don't know about beer. Then you'll have an understanding of how all the ingredients play with each other. Same goes for hops. And then to be able to, so when you get to that point, you can then look at a recipe, or as you're writing out a recipe, you'll know how it goes. You'll have, first thing you'll come to your mind, like, I want to make whatever. Say, I'm going to make an Oktoberfest, and you'll have an idea of what goes in an Oktoberfest. And then you have, these are my options, more or less. And then as a homebrewer, most of them are like, okay, then I can throw in carrots, and I can throw in hot peppers, and I can throw in everything else too, right? But if you're specifically going after a certain beer, you'll know how different things play together. And then, because you have done just a certain amount of experimentation and some blending, and then you'll have an idea of how the different percentages work with themselves. So if you look at a recipe and say, okay, that's 25%, say Munich malt, and you're like, okay, well, I don't think that's going to give me what I'm looking for. Maybe a great beer is just not going to give me what I'm looking for. And then once you can pin down how the ingredients play with each other, this is a long process. You know, you're not going to jump in right away. You may jump in right away and win 1 or 2 awards. It's winning awards consistently across a whole field. There's some people that win just award after award after award of sour beers, or award after award, or after, you know, IPAs or something like that. Being able to do that across the whole spectrum that's always where I started. I wanted to make, someday I'm in the mood for a sour beer, someday I'm in the mood for an IPA, someday I'm in the mood for a Helles or something, right? Mm-hmm. So being able to do that really it will set you apart specifically, not just for yourself, to help other people too. Because when somebody hands you a recipe, the first people hand me a recipe, I'll look at it and say no. And they're like, what do you mean no? I was like, well, you tell me exactly what you told me. You told me you come in, you want a wonderful, say Munich Dunkel, and you give me this recipe. I'm saying, I didn't say anything about how good this beer is going to be. It's not going to be a Munich Dunkel. Then you can explain as you way through it. Most of the time, the conversation stops right there. Like, oh, okay, and then they just don't want to hear it. They just don't want to hear the question. So, I mean, one of the most important things that we do, that we always did at the St. Paul Club, is you have to have an open mind. You have to have thick skin. You know, most people aren't going to try to knock your beer because they're saying, you ask me a question, what do I think of this, and I'm going to tell you, and then you go to ask the next person, and you keep going around the room until you find somebody that likes your beer, then you guys sit and talk all night. I mean, you'll see those people, and those people will not get better. They're just content in doing what they're doing, and that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you want, it's not about winning awards. If you want to make something to your taste and to be able to gauge everything you write to your tastes, I mean, I think that's the most important thing. I mean, the best pro brewers too, they make things to their tastes, and it just so happens that some of these people are very unique and their tastes are extremely good and they're compatible with other people. It's like, hey, he made this great beer. So why'd you make it? Because I love it and it tastes great. And everybody's like, you know what, I agree with you. It tastes absolutely wonderful, right?
Yeah. I mean, that seems to be a common theme with a lot of the bigger breweries. You talk to them and they're like, we make the beers we like to drink. Yep. They keep saying that. And then for the longest time early on, I thought, that is just the biggest BS I've ever heard. Yeah. But you get to know them and you talk to them more and you realize that's actually true. And what sets them apart is they do go through that process. They're very particular about what they're looking to make. They're very particular about what they like. And it just so happens what they like translates to a larger audience.
Exactly. I mean, Vitali doesn't have all these massive, extremely expensive restaurants because, you know, just because of who he is. You know, as he writes his recipes, people have a tendency to think they're extremely good, and they're willing to pay, you know, an arm, you know, a rent, you know, a car, a small child, right? So you have to realize, first of all, what your abilities are. If you have a good palate, you can always build your palate, but it's how you taste things. If you're not good at picking up a few things, you know, find people who are your different friends. You'll find somebody that knows absolutely nothing about a beer that just has an awesome palate. My wife, she knows, she's getting to know a lot more about beer since I'm a judge in the brewery and everything like that. But she doesn't know a ton about beer, but she knows about flavor. So I'll ask her, you know, taste this, and she'll say specifically, well, I think it's, you know, it needs a little, and she'll explain to me. She doesn't know what it is, but it's like it's a little sharp, it's a little fat. You know, it needs a little. How can you make it rounder? You know, and that really helps. I think,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I think the most important part too of brewing is tasting beers. I've been all over the world, tasting different beers all over the place. And that's one of the things we're going to do at Pour Decisions, is that I've had the opportunity to travel so often, is that outside 2 miles, 3 miles from where these other beers would come from, you'd never see them anywhere else. But bringing certain things like that here to Minnesota, to the Midwest, the things they'll have in common with beers that you know, I mean, there's tons of things. It's just not going to be the same. You're going to be able to, I mean, you'll be able to wrap your mind around the concepts, and that's all we want. It's like, you've never had this beer probably. We want you to be able to, we'll explain it, we'll say exactly what it is. This is what's in this, and this is the flavor profile. So when you go into it, you're just like, I want a double IPA. And we're like, well, we're not making a double IPA, but there's something similar. You know, it's not one of those things like, well, do you like Coors Light? You know, do you like Bud Light? Do you like Light? Nothing like that. It's give you beers that you really love, the same flavor profile, but with kind of just different ingredients, different processes and stuff like that. I think, you know, we'll be unique in being able to do that. And I think people will find it really fun too.
Is that something you're bringing from the home brewing background into the pro brewing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just all the experience all combined. It kind of all tied in. The second day I ever brewed a batch of beer, I knew I was going to have a brewery one day. It was like
that was one of my questions.
Yeah,
when did you decide to go pro?
Well, it was one of that's. I mean, I'm a researcher by trade, right? I got my PhD in pharmacology in 2007, and I've been a scientist for too long. Too long meaning I can't remember exactly when I started in the lab. Too long is just bad because it's wonderful. But and I knew from the first day I started brewing. It's like, oh, this is something I really like. And the second time into it, I was like, yeah, this is for sure. Then, you know, then after the first set of awards, it was funny. I expect so much out of myself a lot of times, is that I don't stop and smell the roses a lot. So the first time I won, I sent in 3 beers, and the best one I thought was the best one didn't win, and I got two other medals, and I was angry. It's like, oh, that best one didn't win. Then after probably two years it's taken, it's like, you know, it's a crapshoot. Your best beer on any given day cannot win, and your worst beer can win. You're like, you know, I don't know what's going to happen, but it was still my best beer. And what frustrated me was that I thought because it didn't get a medal meant it wasn't good, right? And it ended up getting a 46 out of 50, right? So I was like, and it didn't medal, and I was so angry. I couldn't understand why. Then getting more into the judging process and stuff, you kind of get the hang of why things pan out. But having that mentality, not things aren't good enough, but that you have to understand why either the thing wins or doesn't win, and even if it doesn't do anything, doesn't mean it's not a great beer, right? I mean, because only 3 people can win, and then it gets the best of show. Only one person can win out of all those different beers. Right. So, you know, so your mindset, as you start brewing more and more, your mindset completely changes. Absolutely changes.
Was there a point, I would imagine, in the last 2 to 3 years where, you know, what was it that, you know, since you said it, you know, your second batch back in 2003, I assume, you decided someday I'm going to go pro. What was it in, you know, 2 years ago in 2009, 2010 that you decided, okay, now is the time to do this?
My partner, BJ, said, he came in and was like, hey, you know what, I'm really thinking about, he was a postdoc at the time. I was a postdoc at the time. And, you know, the job prospects were just nil, more or less, for our area, in the cities, because he was married at the time, and I have a family. I'm married and have kids here, so, you know, it's not really something you can pick up and move out. Especially my wife is the breadwinner. She has a wonderful job, and we're not just going to up and leave that for me to make, you know, what postdocs make, which is very, very little. You know, it's all for the training. That's what they always tell you, all for the training. And it's always that way. Anytime anybody pays you less, they're like, hey, it's all about life experiences. You know, like, that's an easy way out, right? Yeah. So he came to me. He's like, you know, I'm really thinking about starting a brewery, and, you know, I want a partner that has the brewing background. You know, so that's how it started, and we just kind of started spitballing ideas from there. Okay. And that was winter of 2008, we started winter of 2008, we started forming a plan.
Yeah. And when did you start in earnest? I mean, when did you?
2008, winter of 2008, we started a plan. It's
That was it?
Yeah, man, it's a long, I mean, I don't want to say to do things right, but to cross every I, dot every T, you have to, being researchers, we research everything into the ground to make sure we knew exactly what we were doing, where we were going, what we needed, how much we needed, across the board, rather than jumping in halfway and we're like, oh, now we can't do anything now.
Yeah.
Right? Either the laws don't permit it, or you don't have the fundage, or your equipment is just terrible. It takes a long time. It's funny, people say all the breweries open up here and across the U.S. People are like, oh yeah, new breweries open up. People have absolutely no idea the amount of energy and strife and gut wrenching brain damage that goes into just putting anything together, just filling out forms, and it's like, that is the least fun part of it. And then when you look at people on their first release, you're like, oh, you should be doing backflips, and they're just like, just sitting there, like they got a smile on their face and they're so happy. It's just like, oh, finally. It's no matter what, it's a long process. If you have, then it's getting used to your new equipment and stuff.
Right.
I mean, New Glarus has made wonderful beers forever. They had that $20 million brewery, that beautiful brewery just built, and they had problems getting it up and running. I mean, getting things exactly the way they used to be consistently for about 6 months or so. Yeah. Dan's a master brewer. I mean, there's like 6 of those in the U.S. He's one of them. So to have somebody with that much experience and that much chops and have the brewery and that much, I mean, basically money wasn't an issue. We're going to build this for this much money, and this is the way it's going to go. This is exactly what I want. He had everything he wanted exactly to a T, and it still takes, a master X amount of time to get going,
Right.
So all the batches of beer that come out for people's first batches of beer, I'm not even talking about ours. I'm just taking any brewery. Give them 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 tries.
Do you think that's more? I mean, I agree. I mean, everybody I've talked to that's opened a brewery, I mean, I think the illusion is smashed.
Yeah.
The first day you start getting into the process of actually opening it, you realize how much work it is and how much work it's going to be once you even get the doors open and you actually make that first batch. I mean, it's got to be more difficult for someone, say, like Dan Carey or yourself, someone that the attention to detail is so important.
Yeah. That's one of the first things we learned was that there's things to fret about and things not. You got to just let some things go. You can't. This is exactly what if not, you're going to be stuck on that single task. And like as the tasks keep ticking by, you're like, okay, there's more rent, and there's another month of rent, and there's another month's rent, there's another month's insurance. It's like you got to get the doors open. If you get the doors open, then worry about the little tiny piddly things that I want the light over there. It's like okay, let me spend 2 days and fix that light over there. No, it's fine. Every time I look at it, it's going to annoy me.
The light's not going to make beer.
Yeah, exactly. Then when the wife sees it, she's going to yell at me. It's like, why don't I have this feeling about the basement, right?
Yeah.
Because I still haven't put the trim up in the basement yet, and that's like, or built the new stairs. I have everything for him. That's like a 3-year process now. I think. Oh crap! I think it was probably before I even started the brewery. I'm in trouble now.
So some key things about the brewery, some key questions. First one, why Roseville? Why did you guys choose to open?
It really, my wife's from Roseville.
Okay.
Her parents are Hungarian immigrants that moved here, and Roseville's always been great. But really, when we started looking, all it had to do was be in the St. Paul watershed. So I got the St. Paul watershed printout, the map saying where water goes to here, and I had my water tested. And every place we went to, looking at different locations, I took the water from there and sent them all and had them tested. And every place we went to that was in the St. Paul watershed had the same water.
Yep.
And the thing about it, and then we had water tested from numerous places around the city, which I won't name, and had them tested, and they were massively different. The St. Paul water has been notorious forever for being wonderful brewing water.
Right.
I mean, you could pretty much do anything to it. There's no treatment needs to be done for nearly any style of beer at all, and it's always been that way. And that's exactly what I'm used. That's what the water I'm used to brewing with.
Sure, exactly.
If I know my recipes, I know my brewing water, I know exactly everything I need to do. If I moved, say 40 miles up north, all of a sudden now I started doing something and this beer doesn't taste anything like it, then I'm gonna have to completely retool everything I do. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. And go ahead.
I was going to say, I always thought that was St. Paul Homebrewers Club dirty little secret.
Oh yeah,
it was the water. It's the water.
It is, man. It is. It's wonderful water. But then again, everybody. The difference is only if you move somewhere else to use their water, right? If you've been living there for a long time, you know how to use the water. You figured out how to use the water. You figure out what works. Absolutely. Right. But then again, if you made X style of beer over here and the same style of beer over here, and you compared them, they're going to be exactly the same ingredients for no other reason than just the water. They'll be really different.
Right.
And it wasn't about liking or disliking other places or locations less. I wanted to use the water, and this place in Roseville was perfect. So
Gotcha.
It was right in the area that I really wanted to be in. It was close to the main highway. It was very easy to get to, ample parking, tons of room. You know, and basically when we first started planning, we started planning for expansion. You know, rather because if we could have got a place much sooner, cheaper, smaller, much smaller, but there's really no expansion. I mean, you could hit max capacity in a year, and there's nothing you could do. I mean, there's nowhere to go.
Right.
And that's the same way for any restaurant that wants to expand either. You know, I mean, but in a brewery, a production brewery, which most places are opening up, they will be getting into cans or they're doing kegs. You know, for sure.
Yeah.
Then you need an awful lot of storage space.
Right.
To begin with, and then space to move around. You know, it's like, okay, well, you know, we've reached our capacity. We really like to start making stuff, more stuff, different stuff. We need more fermenters, bigger fermenters, and they're like, okay, well,
Where are you going to go?
where are you going to go? I mean, it's not like it's San Diego. San Diego, they have 250 barrel, 300 barrel fermenters outside. They just have a little canopy over the top of them. It'll get cold in the winter. We're like, oh, then they don't have to pay for chilling, right? In the summer, it gets hot. The same for the wineries. All their fermentation is done outside. Here, there's not a chance of that. Right. It gets minus 40, right? Oh, there you go. Here's your beer sickle. And you just destroyed your brewing tanks, right? You know, so you can't move outside here. So it's
right.
Go ahead.
Oh, you were talking about capacity. What is going to be the current capacity, and what would be, say, a 1-3 year plan for capacity?
So I went specifically in knowing exactly how big of a size brew house I wanted. So I talked to numerous of my brewer buddies around the nation. I spent some time in Santa Rosa. It's Santa Rosa. It's where Vinny has his Russian River up there,
yep.
Right? And then we went down to Moylan's, and it's in between San Francisco and Santa Rosa. I don't remember the name of the town, but Denise is the brewer there, and I was walking around talking to her. And they make wonderful beer, and everything is done on site. They do bottle off site, but they tank it off site. They don't. Right? So they have a 20 barrel brew house. And when I was talking about it, she was like, you know, I've brewed on 15 or 10 barrel brew houses, 15, 20, and 30. And 20 is by far, in a way, she was saying to me that it was her favorite. She can do anything on it. It's big enough that you can make just your regular stuff, and it's small enough that if you want to do something crazy, that if it bombs, then you don't really have to worry about, you know, you just selling the farm for it, right?
Right.
You know, and for any brewery open up, you always double or triple size your fermenters. So the key to craft brewing or brewing at all is consistency, and consistency comes by, you know, being able to blend your same batch. So basically, you make 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 batches and put them in the same fermenter, and that way the 2 or 3 bitterness units and 1 color unit between all the beers, all of a sudden that gets it's all negligible.
Dissipated, yeah.
Exactly. Then your product's much more consistent.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we chose a 20 barrel brew house to start with 40 barrel fermenters, which we could do well more than enough capacity for the first year. I mean, to not just break even, but to also make money. Then from there, we go to the bigger fermenters. I've always been under the impression that anytime a brewery or anything starts out, you want the fewest number of things to offer people right away. You know, you want 2 things that you think will be knockout, and then 1 backup just in case people hate one of the 2, because it happens, right?
Yeah.
We've done a lot of research, and a lot of our friends have tasted these beers, and people that don't know us, you know, and we've won awards with a bunch of these beers. So we know people enjoy them. Will it sell here is kind of the big thing, right?
Right.
We're different for a lot of reasons. One of the ones is we're not going to be a lot of stuff we're going to be coming out people haven't seen before. It's not available. That gets back to your point. We're making beers that I want to drink that I can't buy here.
Sure.
I mean, that's just you know our philosophy, and we're not doing weird stuff just to do weird stuff. It's just because it's different doesn't mean it's that much different, right? So the first one we come out is the Pubstitute, which is basically, if you look at the BJCB definition, the current definition, it's called a 60 shilling Scottish ale. So basically, it's about 3% alcohol, give or take, right around there. I mean, it's one that, you know, it's just a wonderfully easy to drink beer, and when you get to try it, you'll never ever guess it's that low in alcohol ever. It's one of those things you try and you're like, oh, this is just wonderful. It's just great. It's like just like malt.
Yeah.
Nice and dry and crisp finish and nice and round. It just makes you happy, and you just sit there and you can have 4 or 5 or 6 of them in a couple hours and never ever worry about, you know, being illegal to drive home. You know, having a nice session,
Yeah.
just a conversation. We were talking last night over like 20 scotches, that it was a perfect beer to drink with scotch. I mean, it's like, you gotta water it. I mean, when you combine them, it ends up being like the alcohol of, normal beer. So it's this and going back and forth, right? So it's one that I've always loved. I've won a lot of medals with that beer, not specifically because it's so perfect a style, because the style, the way that a lot of the styles are written now, it's not historically accurate by any means.
Sure.
But it's just a wonderful, easy to drink beer. It's accessible. It's not aimed at any sort of entry level people into the craft beer market. It's not aimed for craft beer experts. It's aimed for everyone. This is not trying to grab people away from Bud Light, Coors Light. This is not trying to grab people away from double IPAs or the people who just drink, Russian Imperial Stout, pint after pint after, pint and a half after single pint. It's aimed for everybody. There was no specific aim other than the fact that there's never been somebody that I didn't serve this beer to, man or woman of any age, that didn't enjoy it. Somebody's like, I can drink that no matter what time of the year, no matter what time, day or night. It's just one of those things. It's like, oh yeah, a pint of that is just, and it goes really well with food.
Sure.
I really don't like drinking with food. I never have. I like drink, food, drink again. I'm not like, give me a water, then I'll get back and I'll wash it down. But this one goes extremely well. It's just so light and it pairs really well, right? And nobody's really doing a lighter Scottish.
No.
At all.
At all.
No, I've never even, I've seen one.
Yeah, it seems like if anything, they go on the higher end.
Yeah, always.
They go the other direction, yeah.
It's and for rightfully so, every brewer in the U.S. is a very smart person if they stay away from the lighter gravity stuff, because a lot of times people are going to get charged the same price no matter what alcohol content it is. It's $5 a pint, okay. For this beer that's 3%, it's $5 a pint for that double IPA. Most people are like, well, I'm going to get the most bang for my buck.
Sure.
Right? Which I got strung up in an interview for saying that I really want this beer not to cost more than $3. And the way it was written, it cut it off. It cut it off in the end when I said, well, or we're going to change it.
Edit it right now.
And chop. And yeah, that's exactly the way we feel. This beer really shouldn't be more than $3, but I don't know if we can do that. I really hope it can. I really hope it can be.
Yeah.
It's a great beer. It's one of those things. It's like England or Scotland, or you go over to the Czech Republic and they'll have their 3% beers, and they're always everything's priced by more or less the gravity units. It's like, it costs me this much to make. I charge you this much. You charge them that much. I mean, you can't tell in the U.S. You can't tell any bar owner or whatever who can charge what. You can't tell them what price to charge. It kind of flows. There's a lot of times in the U.S., not specifically the Twin Cities, is that everything, you look at the menu, it's like, okay, $6. These are all $6. And then you'll see the little two down there, it's like you get a can of hams for $3, or then you get, a High Life for $4 or something, and a Tall Boy for $4.50 or whatever, right? Yeah. And it's not just because they're lighter, that's just the way that kind of culture goes. But, it's one of those things we really want to get into as many hands as possible. And then for the Patters beer, Stan and I had been working on that. It was when Stan was writing his book, Brew Like a Monk. I had just come back from Belgium, and he had done extensive research in Belgium, and I was trying to put together a recipe for the Upper Mississippi Mashout for 2 recipe kits, working with Northern Brewer, because Stan was coming in. He's just going to sign his book, and I was like, hey Stan, why don't we do this? I'll put some recipes together. We'll knock them back and forth and see how to make things. Kind of more or less clone recipes, but clone recipes in the line of, not specifically to. Right. So we did this one, the Patters beer, and then we did the number 8. Number 8's more along the lines of the Rochefort 8, and this is the Westmalle Extra. And I haven't met anyone that has made a bad batch of the Patters beer.
Yeah.
But the difference between the all grain version and the extract version is immense.
Yeah.
The level of depth, the level of complexity. You can make something close extract wise, but you're going to be missing a lot of the hue, I guess, if we're talking colors, right? Oh yes, it's brown, but that sparkly, beautiful red that shines behind there that you don't get yet. I mean, that's the thing with the Patters beer. That's the thing we'll be offering too. There's a whole lot of stuff in the process that goes into making that beer also. It's not just dump and stir like online cooking stoves. Like, take this bowl, dump, stir, bling, gild it with truffles and pounds of saffron, right? Right. So those 2 are the first ones we're going to give, and the way there's kind of 4 that we kind of started planning. I mean, but the 2 that stuck out were these first 2, because basically we wanted to come out with something that, when I say dark, it's not that dark. It's like ruby. It's a darker shade of ruby, but it's not brown, and it doesn't taste brown at all. But it's a darker beer, so if you say darker, a lot of people like red wine. And then we wanted all something lighter brown and not as hoppy, and something darker and brown and not as hoppy, and something lighter and has a lot of hops to it, which is the Patters beer, right? So there's two things right there that people can completely understand. A beer that doesn't have a lot of hops in it, that, you know, it's one of those things that just try it. Let me bring you a sample, just try it.
Right.
Then you're like, oh wow, I don't usually like dark beers. You know,
Yeah.
that's kind of what we want. And then for the Patters beer, it's something that IPA drinkers will love because it has 41 IBUs to it, but it tastes so much more hoppy than 41 IBUs. It's extremely crisp, and it goes about 6.1% just because it dries out so much. I mean, it's just Pils malt, combination of different Pils malts, single hop usually. And it's a lot of the time that single hop, the lower alpha acid hops in general will bring a lot more hop flavor with them, just because the amount of bitterness that you get per unit of oil, because they're different things, right? We're not talking alpha acids, we're talking the amount of oils in them also. So if say your Summit hop, which is 18 bejesus amount of alpha acids versus a nice Styrian Goldings, which is 4, you know, and now I know for the BU I have to add like 0.1 ounce or 1 wink of Summit, or 2 ounces of anything lower alpha acid.
Right.
And because you add 2 ounces of that, all those oils are going to go with it too. So the hoppiness, that's another thing that we're going to be stressing. Bitterness and hoppiness are absolutely completely different things.
Right.
Absolutely completely different things. You know?
Yeah.
So that way we want something that's round and hoppy and that finishes crisp and it's bitterish and it goes away.
It's making me thirsty.
Right? I know. Yeah, so the next beer that we'll come out with, one of the first specialty beers, I mean, everybody loves a big stouty thing, right? I write books, and we do a lot of research on proper historic beers, and one of the first ones we'll come out with is a proper imperial brown stout. So it was basically what Michael Jackson termed Russian imperial stout, right? Courage Brewing Company started their Russian stout in the 50s or so. Started calling it the Russian stout in the 50s, and then it heard imperial Russian stout in the 60s, and then it went from there, you know, and the recipe's completely changed. So the beer is absolutely relatable, but completely different also because of the ingredients. It's a lot of the ones you get in the U.S. is basically you'll have pale malt, lots of crystal malt, lots of roasted barley, you know, so it's really roasty. But the English ones are pale malt, amber malt, brown malt, black malt, lots of invert, lots of colored invert number 2, invert number 3. So it's going to be completely different.
Huh.
Even though it's bitter and it's hoppy, it's got this huge amount of character that all of these different kind of sugars give. And Americans in general, homebrewers specifically, just don't use sugar in anything because they've always been told, all the books have always said sugars are bad, absolutely terrible, they're going to make everything horrible. No, bad brewing practices make sugars bad, not sugar, you know. Sugar in itself is not inherently bad. You know, when I throw down 18 Cokes a day, you know, it's not entirely the sugar's fault that I'm doing that, right? So we're going to come out with a big Russian the Imperial Double Brown Stout is what it's called, IBST, and then another one for the hop heads. It's a Scottish 4K is what it's called. So everybody kind of understands the X labeling. X was a kind of a labeling of a mild, and the only thing a mild meant was that it was to drink young. Had nothing to do with the amount of hops, had nothing to do with the gravity. That's just to be drank young. And K is exactly the same, except K was for keeping. That was made to lay down and age. So the 4K was kind of the big nasty Scottish. It's a big nasty Scots recipe that's got tons and tons of BUs, and I mean measured BUs of like 120, not calculated BUs.
Wow.
Like measured BU 120, yeah, 1070 or so. So you're talking about 7.5% alcohol. It's kind of the same numbers of a double IPA, but the ingredients are very different.
Sure.
Very different. So all these things are absolutely relatable to people. We're already planning ahead. If there's a beer that people don't entirely like, we know exactly what the next one up, and we know exactly the next one up after that is. Yeah. So, you know, this restaurant buddy of mine, he said the first thing you have to realize when you start a business is you have to be able to kill your babies. And I was like, what? What the hell are you talking about? Because we were drinking. He's like, no. He started his restaurant. He had like 4 dishes that he thought were the best ever. Hasn't made those in 3 years. He's like, they just didn't sell. He's like, I think they're wonderful. Well, you know what? I'd rather pay my rent than think they're wonderful. So out they went. New one came in, right? So that's the same. That's just exactly the same idea we have. You know, we really think these are going to do well. I really like drinking these, but I have the next 2 on deck, then the next 400 after that. I mean, I know exactly where I want to go and what I want to do.